Hello students, so today this video is going to show you how to do our mass spectroscopy lab. So what you see here, okay, you have some mass spectroscopy data for an unknown element. Each of the peaks that you see represents a different isotope of this element. So over here we have some very small peaks, low percent abundance, and some bigger peaks with a higher percent abundance. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do for this lab is you're going to get the paper copy that you're given in class. You're going to get a ruler and measure the base and the height of these triangles, because the area of the triangle is going to be proportional to the percent abundance of this triangle. Okay, and that's what we're going to calculate here in just a minute, but we're going to use Google Spreadsheets because it can do lots of math for us very quickly. We just need to tell it what we want it to do. Okay, so after you've made those measurements, you are going to go in here and add those measurements. You're going to type those measurements in. So I'm going to start by making up some numbers. Okay, so I'm going to say, I don't know, 1.51 and 0.20. Now when I measure this with my ruler, let's say I'm going to the 100th place using sig figs, but as you notice here, the spreadsheet is adding a bunch of other zeros. So what do? First, you want to go back and highlight those cells. So each one of these little squares is called a cell. And up here, these values can either increase the decimal place or decrease the decimal places. In this case, I want to decrease the decimal places. So say I just wanted to go to the 100th place. So that's how I would do that. Okay, now to calculate the area, I can tell the spreadsheet to do the math for me. Okay, so the way to tell the spreadsheet that you want it to do some math for you is by pressing the equal sign. The equal sign is kind of like the magic power, okay, of the spreadsheet, because it understands that as you're going to tell me to do something and I'm going to do that for you. And everything that I type in the equal sign is going to show up in here, and it's also going to show up in this function bar over here. Okay, so I want it to take the base of the triangle, which is cell B5. So here's B, and then 5, so cell B5. So base times, so the times is the star, okay, key in your keyboard, the height, C5, and I'm going to divide it by 2. So there's the function right there. Okay, and I'm going to press enter. All right. Now, we don't need to worry about sig figs at this point. We're only going to round to sig figs at the very end. Okay. Now I have to type in all my measurements in here. Okay. I am not going to do go in and type in a bunch of measurements because that will take forever. I wrote some random numbers over here that I'm going to just copy and paste. Okay. Now none of these numbers are the real numbers. Now notice that when I change this number here, it changed the answer, right? Because it's using a formula that just is B5 divided by C5. So if I were to come in here and change that to 0.71, there we go, it changes the area. I don't have to go back and recalculate everything. So if you realize you made a mistake, it's an easy fix. Here's another power of Excel. It would take forever for me to go back here and type equals, this divided by this times whatever. So what I'm going to do is if I click on this cell, you see a little square here at the bottom that I can grab. Okay? I'm going to click on that square and I'm going to drag this all the way to the bottom. And what it's doing, it is essentially doing the same thing over and over again, but it's changing the cell number. So if I click over here and look up here, it says B5 times C5 divided by 2. If I click on the next cell, it noticed the pattern and it copied the pattern all the way down. It went down a cell for both B and C columns. So B6 times C6 divided by 2. So I don't have to go here and do all this math. It's really quick. Now I want to find the total area of all the triangles. Okay, so I'm going to click equals, and then Google Classroom a lot of times will suggest a formula for me. So here it says sum D5 through D14, and that is exactly what I want. I want the sum of all of these area calculations here. So I'm just going to click on that. If it doesn't give you the suggestions, you can just type this in right here. Sum of D5 through D14. Okay, and I'm going to press enter. And there it is, it gives me the sum. So here's what I want to do next. Okay, I want to find the percentage of each triangle, because what we're looking for is percent abundance. Okay, so I'm going to do equals. And then I'm going to take the area of this individual triangle here, and I'm going to divide it by the total area. Okay, that will give me a percentage. I'm not going to multiply it by 100 because I want it in decimal format. I'm going to click enter. There it is. Now I'm going to drag this all the way down. But something happened and it gave me an error message. It's saying we cannot divide this by 0. So if I click on any of these cells, okay, what it did is it copied the pattern from this first cell. This first cell was D5 divided by D16. For the next cell, it tried to do D6 divided by D17. Here's the problem though. D17 is this cell down here. It is not this cell. So how can we fix that? There is an easy fix. I am going to go up here and I'm going to click right in front of that D, and I'm going to put a $sign in front of it, and then another $sign right in front of the 16. That tells the spreadsheet that we are not going to change the number that we're going to divide by. Okay, and then I'm going to press enter. Now I'm going to click on that cell again, and I'm going to drag it all the way down. And when I do, it can calculate that. If I click on any of these, see, it kept the bottom number exactly the same. Now to find the mass contribution of each triangle or of each isotope to the average atomic mass, I'm going to type equals, and then I'm going to take the percentage times the mass of that isotope and press enter. Now I'm going to take this and drag it all the way to the bottom. Okay, so I have all the different mass contributions for all of the different isotopes. And then I'm going to click in here and I'm going to do the sum. This time I'm not going to take the suggestions so you can see how it's done. I type in sum parentheses and I'm going to highlight all of these cells, close parentheses, and press enter. And it gives me the sum. Now over here I had already set up to be to the 100th place because that's what I wanted it to do. Of course you can change the number of decimal places depending on what your teacher is requiring you to do. For my students in my class, I'm requiring you to keep it to the 100th place. And then whatever your number is here, you look at the periodic table and you find the element with the closest mass to that, and you type the element symbol or element name down here. And that's what we do for the Mass Spectroscopy Lab.